since my time here in 2022 to now, and I was just at the front lines a few days ago talking to battlefield commanders that I know and trust and folks that I've known for over 3 years now. And I've been able to see a huge improvement between the military tactics of 2022 and today. And that's something that I am very surprised and proud of. That making mistakes in war usually means a bunch of people on your side get killed. And that can be a big problem. And the Ukrainian military still has a lot of improvements to make, just like any military does. But for me, it's been really cool to see how quickly they've adapted. And I'm confident that a big part of that is how much NATO is helping, both NATO countries and the U.S. They have a very strong and tight partnership with the Ukrainian military and also within the Foreign Legion that works for the intelligence community. And I know that that's helping out a lot. And that's one of the reasons why the Ukrainian military is so much more effective than the Russian military. The Russians, they learn from their mistakes also, a little bit slower in my experience than the Ukrainians, but they don't have such a positive influence like what we have here with the NATO countries helping out with resources. And also I know that some of these other countries are helping Ukraine with the development of some of their own weapons.
In the beginning of our conversation, you said that in the beginning of the full-scale war, you thought that Russian army is the second army in the world. Did you change your thoughts after going to Ukraine?
I would say that I was probably here maybe less than a month before I realized that was some propaganda that a lot of the world, myself included, believed, and that was completely wrong, and that there was no evidence to support it. There's so much corruption over there in the Russian military that is why their military is so weak. It was weak 3 years ago, it was weak 4 years ago, and it's very weak even today, even with all the fighting they're doing and everything that they send over here. Still incredibly weak because no accountability within their forces, and very little discipline, and so much corruption that any normal military commander knows if you invade a country, you put new tires on your vehicle. When we invaded Iraq from Kuwait, it was before I joined the military. I was still in high school. But I know it wasn't with stuff that was just falling apart. But that was something that the Russian commanders thought would be a good idea because they were able to put more money in their pocket and defraud their own government, which got a lot of their own people killed. So that's a huge difference that I see between the two.
And at the same time, some intelligence reports that Russia could strike European states in the coming years, and there is kind of a deadline, as they say, in 2030. Do you think the West is prepared for a possible conflict with Russia?
I think every day that this goes on, they are getting more and more prepared. I know that the United States has strongly encouraged European nations to spend more money on their own defense to help deal with situations like what we're dealing with today. And the amount of land that Russia has taken here in Ukraine has, I think, been a huge and very good wake-up call for a lot of the European Union nations that they really need to take Russia more seriously than they actually have. So I'm very grateful that my country is strongly encouraging, sometimes forcefully, that the European countries spend more money on their defense to help avoid stuff like this from happening. We're all very confident that if the countries over here had much stronger militaries years ago, that most likely Putin never would have launched a full-scale invasion. He only did this because he thought he would win easily.
This week you are going to Washington to speak to Congress again and advocating for more support for Ukraine. Do you feel this topic is still on the agenda and still a priority in the U.S.?
I believe it is. Yes, when I go to Washington, I go there for the Ukraine Action Summit. This happens twice a year. I believe this one is number 7. that happens. And I work with the American Coalition for Ukraine, and it's made up of hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the country. So the one I did most recently was in April of this year. There was over 600 people there representing all 50 states and the territory of Puerto Rico, all for delegates to speak to their respective congressmen and women. And it was a lot of good people there. Some folks there don't like me very much, but a lot of them have been extremely supportive of what's going on here. Some of them also may not do a whole lot of fighting over here, but they come here doing humanitarian stuff, delivering aid, delivering sometimes protective equipment like body armor or just tourniquets, stuff like that. So it's not just made up of people that are just sitting at home in America all the time, but people that they've come here a lot more often than I have. Again, this is only my 4th time here, and some of them come over here almost once a month for maybe a few days or a week at a time to bring as many supplies as they could fit into a suitcase. So during this summit in Washington, yes, we will be talking to all the representatives of our states. So I'm one of the delegates from Arizona. So I'll be talking directly to all of those offices. And that's something that I feel is very helpful for what's going on, because there's very few Americans that have spent any significant amount of time over here, especially doing combat operations. That's also a former veteran of other wars within the United States. So far I have received very good receptions from the offices that I've talked to, that they're able to hear from a fellow American that's a veteran that also served, our country, the United States, in war, to hear my perspective of what's going on here, to best target the most efficient support possible. And that even includes us advocating for Congress to put more pressure on Russia to return the almost 20,000 confirmed children that we know that have been kidnapped from occupied areas. We know that number is much, much larger. Russia says it's over 700,000 children, so 20,000 isn't really an accurate number, but it's a confirmed number. So that's something that we will be advocating for again next week, is more pressure put on Russia to return the children. And that's something that's nice, that whether it's a Republican office or a Democrat office, no one argues about children should not be part of warfare. And that's something that we might argue about some of the other specifics of how to support Ukraine. But keeping the children out of it and trying to get children home is something that every office fully agrees with. And it's nice to see that support.